All right, well, happy Tuesday. We're back for Career Review today, and Julie and I are here today to talk to you about how to give a 2-week notice to your current employer. I know we spent a lot of time talking about other topics within the career process and like how to interview and write your resume and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of times one thing we kind of overlook is what you do when you finally land that awesome job. So do you want to get started with kind of the first few steps?
So common courtesy is always give a 2-week notice. I recommend, and if someone, for some companies in certain industries prefer or have someone sign something stating they give a 30-day notice. So if you did sign something where it's 4-week notice, do honor that. But typically it's 2 weeks. And then just put it in writing, make sure you have a resignation letter, and then hand deliver. And I would meet with your supervisor personally. If not personally, maybe over a phone call. And then another thing as well is not to tell and talk about a lot with coworkers or peers at work, just because a lot of times it can go.
They'll talk. Yeah, they'll find out ahead of time.
I don't know if you've had instances, but I've known instances where people have talked and their supervisor knew before they even gave their resignation.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yes, so I would tell your boss first and meet with them, and then tell your peers or friends personally. So
good advice. Absolutely. Another thing is when you give your notice in writing or when you're talking to your manager and letting them know that you're leaving, it's not time to really hash out the reasons that maybe you're not happy with your current role or position. I mean, a lot of times when we leave, there's multiple reasons we leave, and maybe some of them are not so great about the current situation. But that's not what you really want to do in your 2 weeks. You want to be grateful. You want to express your gratitude, tell them what you've learned, that you appreciate their time, and leave it short and sweet like that. Other thing is you want to be prepared that maybe a counteroffer could happen. If they really, do appreciate you being there, and you might even be blindsided by this, but try not to be and be ready. Know what you would need to have if that's something that you are going to entertain. But hopefully if you're at that point, you're not wanting to entertain a counteroffer, and at that point, if you're not, then you just tell them, thank you for the opportunity, but I think at this point, this other opportunity is just too hard to pass up. Another thing is a lot of times employers nowadays with security being so tight and so important, sometimes they have a policy in place that if you give 2 weeks notice, you leave the day you give your notice and you don't actually fulfill your 2 weeks. And so something to be prepared for is if you know that's coming up, take some of your personal belongings home ahead of time or have your desk ready to go, so that way when you give it, you're not having to do that later, and so you're just kind of ready to go and it's not a huge mess. Another thing is just to have a transition plan in place for your current coworkers and that sort of thing.
Definitely. And one thing I actually thought of is a lot of companies now, which I think is a really positive thing that they do, is they implemented is doing an exit interview just to see, maybe, what concerns an employee had or kind of the reasons for looking. And so I think, if there was ever an exit interview, to be honest, but also focus on the positive. But if there was ever anything of improvement, to be honest in a positive way.
Yes. Yep.
So I've noticed more companies doing that.
As long as you're positive too. Another thing is, keep good contacts, keep in good contact with your prior employers. You just never know when you might run into these people again, or, it's a small world, and here in Des Moines, I mean, we run into people time and time again, so you just never want to burn that bridge. And so yes, it's good to be honest to a certain extent.
Yes.
Be positive though, but I think, they want your feedback. That's why, we're starting to really implement exit interviews here, I know. And something we're trying to really focus on. So anyway, that's really all we have today. Thank you so much for tuning in to Career Review today. If you have any questions about giving your 2 weeks notice or need advice on that, just reach out to us at ariane.com/careerview. Thanks.